Hi, this is Clee Crocker with Appliance Factory Mattress Kingdom, and I'm here once again in Thornton, Colorado at the Appliance Factory store, and we're going to talk about dryers today. Now, I don't talk about dryers that often, and that's because normally you get your dryer when you get your washer, and simply said, if you get the matching dryer, you're probably going to be just fine. But sometimes that dryer goes out early or not the same time the washer, and you need to buy that, and you need to know what to know before you walk in. So here's the things you want to do before you actually make your purchase. Seems simple, but not everybody knows this. Do you have a gas dryer or an electric dryer? So that's really important. Figure that out. You got a gas dryer or an electric dryer. If you have a choice, is there advantage to gas? Well, not much anymore because the electric side of things are so efficient. And really it starts with the washer. The washer spin out things so fast that there's not a lot of moisture anymore of what goes into the dryer. So the dryer doesn't have to run as long as it used to. So if you get electric, to me it's just as fine and maybe even safer than if you get a gas. And if you get gas, that's fine too. But just know what you need before you walk in and make sure you check your invoice before you leave the store where you made your purchase to make sure they actually sold you the right fuel type that you need. So the next thing is you need to understand your sizing. So dryers come in different sizes. The most common size is 27 inches wide. And that is what almost 90% of the washers and dryers are in terms of the width. And so that's going to be important to you because there are some that are ultra small. They're 24 inches wide. You'll know those probably as soon as you see them. But there's also some dryers that are 29 inches wide or 30 inches wide. So it's really important that it's able to get back in the hole that you're replacing your old dryer for. So make sure you understand that. And then, of course, you'll need an understanding of the depth that you have to work with. Always remember that you need some space in the back of a dryer to allow for the ventilation. So it's really important. Speaking of ventilation, ventilation is probably the biggest killer of any dryer out there. Probably almost everybody that's going to come in is going to come in because the dryer got too hot because somewhere in the ventilation there was lint that got clogged up or the ventilation hose got kinked, and it's causing things to get backed up in terms of heat, and that superheat going back into a motor can actually kill a dryer really fast, even if it's brand new. So ventilation and proper circulation of your dryer becomes very important. So then you need to understand whether you want a front matching dryer or a top matching dryer. So if you look on this side, we have a washer here, we have the dryer here, and this dryer is made to mirror the washer. Typically, when you get a front load match like this, the dryer is going to be extra large on the inside. At the same time, let's take a look at those on across the way. And here we have a top load washing set. And the dryer here, although it's pretty large, but you can see it's definitely made to match a top load. And if you don't care, well, then you get to choose whatever the lowest price is. So that's good for you. So other things to think about. If you're doing a stack unit, you need to understand sometimes that people want to stack their washer and dryer. So as long as you bought a front load, you should be able to stack the matching dryer on top of it. There's a little kit that you have to put on that keeps it from sliding off. The dryer goes on top, but as you can see, these doors, they swing different ways. So it's kind of a hassle. You may not be able to get around it, but to have one door swinging one way and the other door swinging the other way, wouldn't it be convenient if they both swung the same way? So that's something you need to ask yourself, is that something you would like to do? Now, as you can see from this set, this washer can switch its door from this side to this side. That's why it looks like it's got something here that's removable. But not every dryer can do that. So that's important to understand. A dryer doesn't always have the ability to switch its door sides. So if that's important to you, you need to go that going in. So they can recommend brands that do. Now, I think there's more brands that allow it now, but a lot of them don't. Probably the most prominent one that I remember for ages that had it was Electrolux Laundry. They are always able to switch their dryer to the other side, dryer door. So that's kind of good to know. Some features you may be looking for that you don't want to go, oh, I forgot to ask for that when you got home, is like the dryer light. Do you have a dryer light when you open the door? That's really convenient if you're kind of in a dark or tight space at home, so you can actually see what's going on in there. Another thing is a rack for drying your shoes. That's just a rack that hooks in. It just kind of sets up here and hooks in right above where this circulation is, and it allows you to have shoes inside there or other heavy items that you don't want to beat around the drum and cause all that noise. Sometimes people put like finer sweaters on the dryer rack just so that the air kind of goes through it without actually beating up like a cashmere sweater. So other things to think about is what kind of safety do you want on it? So have you heard me say in the past, my wife is an ICU nurse. So we like to have things that have sanitary cycles on there so that you can get that on the washer. You can also get that in a dryer. And what that does, when you turn it on purpose, it will tell the dryer to beef that temperature up to a hot enough point so that it will actually kill 99.9% of the bacteria. So that's very good in situations like our house where I have a healthcare worker inside the home. Other things you can do is buy laundry that actually has antimicrobial rubber gaskets on them. And you'll see more and more of those. They'll have it on the handle, they'll have it in the drum. You'll see it sometimes in the dryer. I don't think this dryer actually has it, but something that a nice feature that you might like. The most important thing to me in terms of dryers nowadays, and this has been for me for a long time, is actually getting a dryer that has steam on it. It's got a steam cycle. So what happens is when you're hooking up the dryer, there's actually a water hose that will connect to the back side of them, and it allows steam to come in at the right time, and that will actually loosen the wrinkles so that when you get the clothes out, you don't have that many wrinkles in it. In fact, you may not have any wrinkles because of your steam setting. So another way that I use that is, you know, I'm working today and I may have laundry going on right now at my house, and when I get there, it's going to be dry, but it's going to be wrinkled. So most of these dryers now have a steam wrinkle-free set. So it's really a refresh set. So you set that on your dryer. It goes about 15 or 20 minutes, depending on your brand, and it will fluff it around. It's going to throw some moisture through it, and it's going to re-dry it in a very short cycle. And those wrinkles are almost gone. Now, it will not replace things like an iron, but it will make the clothes come out as if you'd got to them immediately after it stopped. You know, when a dryer first stops, you pull the clothes out, not a lot of wrinkles in there. Well, that's what a steam refresh does. So I think that's a very important thing for you, is to look for a dryer that has a steam setting. You can usually get that about the second level up in drying for any brand. Usually the first one doesn't have that. The second one up and thereafter, in terms of price point, gives you that steam cycle. And I'd say that's a must-have for most homes. You won't get as many of the front load matches to do that, but a lot of the high efficiency ones, like the ones we were just looking at, does have that in most of their dryers. So don't miss that out. You know, it's usually not a lot of big price between the one that doesn't have steam and the one that has. So that's a recommendation I have for you. Another thing I like to have is something called an extended tumble. So other brands, I think Samsung calls it a wrinkle-free button. So what does that do? Well, after the dryer is all done drying, it'll stop. And as long as you have that setting turned on, a few minutes later, maybe it's 10 or 15 minutes later or less, it'll turn back on again, and it'll dry and kind of fluff things up, and then it stops. And then another period of time will go by, and it'll turn itself on again and do the same thing again. And the whole thing is so that your clothes don't wrinkle up while you're there. I love that because I'm doing things around the house. I don't always get to the dryer when I can. And so when I get there, it has just been setting. It'd be like what I described before. It'd be wrinkled by the time I found it. But as long as it keeps fluffing itself up and just making sure everything's turned, it's as if I got there the minute it stopped drying. So that's another must-have feature I think you would like to have. So another thing is Wi-Fi. Now, to be honest with you, none of my dryers have ever had that. My next one will have that, but basically it lets your phone know when it's done and it's time to go check on your clothes. You get that on the washer, you can get that on the dryer, and I think it's fantastic, and I wish I'd had that all along. So that's a nice thing, not necessarily a must-have thing. The really important thing to tell you is when you're buying a laundry set, as I said in the beginning, the easiest thing to do is to match the dryer to the washer right then. A matching pair generally means that whatever you can cram into that washer will fluff out in the dryer and it will have less wrinkles. Now, you can overload a washer, but if you overload a dryer with that same clothes, it's probably going to wrinkle up, even if you got a good dryer. So, you know, control the amount that you put in your washer. It's better, and then put everything back in the dryer, and you'll come out wrinkle-free. The thing is, though, if you have the steam setting, that's not really an issue. If you have the wrinkle-free setting, that's not really an issue. And then all of them have the basic cycles on there, so I'm not going to go into that. You know, follow your what kind of your fabric recommendations you have for your dryer. They haven't really changed much in all these years. A lot of different names for the same thing, but for me, I just use the normal setting for almost everything I do. But I do know there's more precise settings. So other unique features that you can do, some of the dryers out here actually link up with the washer, and the washer will tell the dryer what to set its settings on based on what you set the washer on. So that's kind of cool. You can check out some of those brands. Another thing too, some of the brands out here in the washer will actually do the drying for you. So like Maytag has this feature where if you put the clothes in the washer and you have that setting set, then after a while, it's kind of like that wrinkle guard button I told you in the dryer. The washer will stop, and after a while, it'll start tumbling things and let air in from the outside, and that replenishment of the air and the turning will help dry the clothes. By the time you're ready to put them in the washer, if they've been sitting there for a while, like say overnight, they're already dry. You don't even have to put them in the dryer. So that's kind of neat. So that's some of the drying things that you have. The one piece we didn't really talk about is Unitized Laundry. That is a single piece that has the washer on the bottom and the dryer on the top. You're really going to get what you're going to get there. That's where you get some of the unique sizes, like you can get it in 24-inch, 27-inch, 30-inch. You also have the all-in-one. So that's a single unit that's about this size, and that's where the same drum will both wash and dry. So that's available to you. Usually I see those in places that don't have much space. I've sold those to colleges before to put into the sporting dorms. But anyway, that's the options that you have. So lots of choices in dryer. It's not really that complicated. Come in, we'll be able to help you out. We'll be able to help you through all these issues, but hopefully this offers you some relief in terms of what to look for when you come in.